Welcome back to the newest episode of Built to Last podcast, where we're here to have conversations with leaders, founders, entrepreneurs. But Built to Last is not just about businesses and organizations and what you need to do. It's that messy middle between us as individuals and business owners, and really just by sharing some of those things that have no easy answers, just some experience shares. So I'm really excited to have Nick in here today. I've met Nick a couple times through random conversations. Nick is actually we've never worked with Nick. We don't have a really close relationship, but he represents the type of organization that we're excited to kind of see grow into the next, not I just say next generation, but it's a well-established, been around a long time business, and I'm happy to get into his story and how his ideas for the future and how he's been keeping up. So I'm really excited. This will be a lot of new territory for me that we get to explore. I believe the initial connection came in by Colby, so I'm going to pass it to Colby quickly, and then as usual, we don't want to read a bio, so we'll quickly pass it over to Nick. Colby.
I'll keep it quick. I got the introduction from a good friend, Martin Balcom, who's also been on the podcast, and we've spent a lot of time together. And I think it was just an intro of I think that the two of us should have a conversation, and we had a conversation to see where you're at, and we heard about a few of the ERP things that were kind of a fun. Not so fun experience. I think that's kind of where we met initially. And I've been curious, like, we're pretty passionate about, independent family owned businesses, like thriving into the future is kind of what we get excited about. And you seem to be kind of the poster child for that. Look, you've grown a great thing and stepped into this. I can't wait to hear the story about stepping into the leadership role and all that kind of stuff, but I'll pass it to you. And the question is how do you introduce yourself today?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, asked myself that question a lot. But yeah, so I appreciate it, Colby and Levi, for allowing me the opportunity to have a chat on Friday afternoon. I'm Nick MacGregor, General Manager here at McGregor's Industrial Group in downtown McCollumsbrook, Nova Scotia, in beautiful Pictou County, and the northeastern part of the province. I'm third generation in our family's business. Currently at the top of the organization, and get to enjoy what I do every day, and love going to work. So,
love it.
Great. So I mean, we can take this anywhere, but I'd love to start with a little bit of origin story.
Yeah.
You take that however you want. Like, I know your origin story of becoming, the next at the top of the ladder, but also like, what does in your family look like getting your feet wet? I grew up in dairy farms. It's mandatory child labor in dairy farming world. So I don't know, what's it like in your world?
Yeah, it's funny. 2 days ago, we had our insurance underwriters coming for a tour of the facility, and there happened to be a little bit of dirt in the walkway going to the washroom. So I grabbed the broom and swept it up. And one of the girls in the accounting office said, "I'm surprised to see you holding a broom." I said, "I've worn out more of these than you can count in my youth." That's I was all part of it. 10 years old, on the weekends, you want to earn a few bucks, spud, come on up and sweep the floor. And I'll never forget when I was 10, one of the first times Dad ever got me and a buddy of mine, to sweep the floor. And, he offered us each $50, which was, a massive amount of money when you're 10 years old. So, we did that and got the whole floor swept up. Took us most of the morning because, of course, we weren't moving too fast. And anyway, had lunch, and then afterwards he brought out the big box of dustbane, the sweeping compound, to get the dust down. He's like, "Okay, so you see that dustbane?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "So what you're going to do is you're going to put that all down all over the floor, and then you're going to sweep it all again." So, and that was Saturday afternoon. So anyway, that's yeah. So anyway, no, that's kind of how it all started. I mean, I remember lots of times from young elementary school age of Saturday mornings. We have a retail industrial supply side of our business, which was quite small, especially back in those days. And my father worked Saturday mornings off the time on the parts counter, and I remember being in here 5, 6 years old with him, typing up invoices for him and all that kind of stuff. So lots of good memories, that I all get to see reflected in my son now. So it's you're definitely kind of born into it, and yeah, very fortunate that way. So.
Do you did you go work for other people for any amount of time, or like is there any kind of thinking that is standard, or is it kind of everybody choose their own adventure?
No, actually, my father, Andy, really pushed me to go work somewhere else, and I didn't listen to him. I mean, work somewhere else for a period of time with hopes that maybe I'd consider the family business in the future after I finished my community college journeys. And anyway, I was a homebody, and I actually spent 6 months living in Fredericton there. My now wife, girlfriend at the time, was studying at UNB, so I did a co-op placement up there in Fredericton, and I knew that, the city life, if you call Fredericton a big city,
Yeah.
was not for me. And
Yeah.
anyway, I came back, and that was 15 years ago, and it's just like, wow, where does the time go, right? And it's
Mm,
guess no 2 days the same, but yeah, I mean, I am the only one in the third generation of the family that has gone the family business route. The second generation was my father and my uncle. I'm an only child, and my uncle didn't have any kids, and my cousins and with the other siblings there, had some summer jobs here back years ago, but other than that, never really had any involvement. So yeah,
mm.
some days I'm the lucky one, some days I feel like I'm the bad apple, but anyway, we're here. So
uh, what's that passing of a torch like? So I know a lot of people who have gone through this, and it's always a unique story. But is it like it's not typically an immediate like I feel like I've got the role. There's a paper transaction at some point, but then there's a much more
yeah.
human transaction. How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, so I guess my father, dad's, I'll say, entered semi-retirement last, when is, geez, hard to be 2 years, almost 2 years ago now. That's wild. So yeah, June 2024, he started slowing down, and we had talked about that for a while. And he did it right. He had built his leadership team. Particularly for the last 10 years of his work, that really gave him some flexibility. That still put in lots of time and was there for the important decisions, but also had flexibility that a lot of family business owners, quite honestly, don't
Mm,
do right. They're kind of tied to it, right?
mm,
I was lucky to have some great mentors outside of the family, both inside the business and outside of the business. And so we've been working on it for a while. I mean, the conversation really started probably, I'll say, 10 years ago of, what's your thoughts? You've been in the business full time 4 or 5 years here now. Is this what you want to do for your career? At that point, I knew it was, and I really enjoyed what I was doing and loved the challenge and the pride piece of the family business. So it all kind of started from there. And you're right, there's there's the paper transaction, which is, to me, just the documentation side. It's really more the honorary transaction of,
mm,
someday dad just stops coming to work, right?
mhm. Or doesn't, depending on the
Yeah,
family.
yeah, or doesn't, depending on the family. And I know
Yeah.
look, some of the family business groups that I've been involved with there's lots of people in my shoes that are wishing their parents would retire and won't, right? But I'm very fortunate that way that Dad lives about 30 seconds down the road, and get to see him every day. And even my grandfather, the founding generation, 88 years old, lives directly across the road from the company, and still get to see him all the time. And, the support's there when we need it. And, kind of set the rules of engagement as to, here's what I want to be involved in, and here's what I don't. And that's going to get less and less as time goes on. And, now he's kind of the director of facility maintenance and snow removal is kind of his title these days. The technical title is CEO, but you know, more of a tractor and outside guy these days. So
Wow. Wow,
yeah.
very cool. And it's funny, my grandfather's passed away now, but when they sold, we grew up with a Burger King in the family,
Okay.
and my parents and my grandfather had this Burger King for 22 years, and they sold it to someone they knew at a Moncton, and I think my grandfather still worked there at 84. So like he was just showing up there and helping out when it got busy and stuff. And and leaning on the counter, watching everything. And
Yeah.
yeah, he
Oh,
loved it.
it gets in your blood, right? Like I know, like I love waking up and getting to do what I do every day, and I can only imagine how difficult it is to walk out. I mean, I'm sure, once you get to that age, being at it for 40 years, Dad always joked that, he shoveled the gravel out of the brook behind the family farm to make the culvert to put the road in for the first shop in 1976. So, he was kind of employee 1A type thing behind my grandparents, and so he had his fill. He was ready to start slowing down, but it gets in your blood,
Hmm.
and it's really part of who you are. So when it's
Yeah.
time to start slowing down, and very similar with my grandparents, they my grandmother was very equally involved in the business. My dad and my uncle always called her the director of war and finance here in the company, as she was
Hey, war and
yeah
finance.
yeah, the guys, some of the old hands that still work with us that worked under my grandparents, they said, God help you if you missed claiming a piece of material on your timesheet or got your hours wrong, because she'd be coming through the shop after you. And but I mean, grew up, very humble beginnings, as many people did in that generation, kind of post-war era, big families on rural family farms, and a lot of days didn't have a pot to piss in, and they grew it honestly, and worked hard, and yeah, and they, same thing. They My father and my uncle were both working in the business, and one day, I think grandfather's kind of short for words and not much for formalities. So one day he just kind of sat them down in the office and said, "So you want the business or not?" And the answer was yes. And then they papered that up, and then he
Hmm.
just kind of started fading off. So yeah, interesting for sure. So
Interesting.
Um, I got a question for you. So the when you started to transition into this role, was there parts of it that, you were in the company for a while, but then when you're actually kind of sitting in that seat, yes, you've got support around you, but was there things that kind of surprised you about like stepping into that role more in a full-time way?
Yeah, definitely some for sure. I mean, like I said, I was really fortunate that I was pretty immersed in the financial aspect and the HR aspect and all that type of thing. But one thing I never understood, my office was literally right beside my father's, and I never understood why my father kept his door closed all day, why dad kept his door closed, and I was, till I got in this office, and you're the general manager, everybody that's walking through the hallway almost feels obligated to stop in, say hello, have a quick chat. And I'm like, listen, if we got something to talk about, I'm more than happy to have a chat, but we're all busy. Let's keep doing what we're doing. So I get that now, and I've carried that tradition on. It's still very much an open door policy
Yeah.
here. I tell
Yeah. You just
everybody,
got to
right?
open it.
Yeah, you just got to knock and open it, right? So that's part of it. There's a lot. I think some days you feel that when you're just working in the business, you see all the revenue coming in, and you see customers and growth and things like that, and you don't underestimate sometimes just how hard it is to fund all of that, and to make those ends meet when you're in growth mode. I would say that's definitely been an eye opener over the past few years, just in the period of rapid growth, just how challenging that cash flow perspective can be, and managing it. And we're very fortunate that we've got some great financial leadership in the company, and a diversified customer base and all those types of things. But man, there's some days it's hard on the head. That's for sure.
Totally.
We know. Yeah.
You know.
Uh, I I do want to get a little bit more into a few topics that are a little bit more like, but I think we need to start with a little bit about maybe describe a little bit more for like the people listening exactly what your business does. Um,
Yeah, I ask myself that every day. Same right on the lines of who do you want to be when you grow up. But But yeah, so kind of to keep it simple. So McGregor's Industrial have four business units, all based here in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. So we have our manufacturing arms, which would be our steel fabrication and our machining divisions. We have a retail business, industrial supply, so industrial hardware and hose and fittings, safety equipment, so on. Then we have our field services division, which is basically everything that happens outside of the shop. So whether that's supply of skilled trades personnel for plant maintenance shutdowns to installation of equipment, steel erecting, industrial electrical services, right through to underground mining. That's a key piece of it. And then there's a few other subsets under that as well, like prefabricated buildings in our fab shop, and seems to be kind of new things every day. And sometimes we're kind of just a little bit of everything to our key accounts for sure, right?
Mm.
So, but those are kind of the four pillars of the business, I would say. So,
so this is a big umbrella question. I just want to lay a little bit of groundwork on kind of the type of work you did, because it's very hands-on. It's very like real. There's no like digital services or anything. And I just want to make sure that was clear. There's facilities, there's equipment, there's people, there's training, there's all. I just wanted to make that. And we talk a lot around we use the term traditional business.
yeah,
It's hands-on, it's brick and mortar. It's not like some of the businesses that are being built today. They've been around for decades, not years.
yeah.
And how do they start looking at technology adoption? How do they, the big umbrella of get with the times, improve? And one of the things in just the brief conversations we've had is that you've been quite a while making those efforts. You've been looking to the future. You've been embracing some of those things more than I've seen some others. And I would love to know, like, when did that start? Is there a champion for that, or is that just always been the culture, or how did that all come
Yeah,
about?
we not always the culture. I'll say that. A lot of people speculate that my grandfather retired when computers started coming into the offices because it just wasn't his thing. He's still amazed at this day that he can go onto his iPad and look things up. That's as far as he's gotten. But even my father and my uncle, they were your typical. Started as a tradesperson, ended up as a business owner type scenario that,
Mm,
they'll use emails, they'll print drawings, but pen and paper is still preferred was kind of their
yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
method, right? And I'd say really we had a few internal champions here, some younger estimator and project managers that were with us for quite a number of years that saw, okay, there's better ways to do things just from simple storage of documents so that people can share them and collaborate with them and actually find them when you need to, and things like that. And then about 10 years ago we had another good friend of Dad's, but a management consultant there named Wade Taylor. He came in and he's retired now, but he really kind of started, I'll say, putting some proper structure in the business, from financial reporting to, you know, um, digital strategy and all those types of things. And we made a ton of mistakes and we wasted a
Mm,
pile of money along the way, doing things wrong. And,
hmm.
I know we're not alone in that. And there's going to be a lot of trial and error, but, and some of those implementations, I look back and say, what were we thinking? Right. But,
Hmm.
we've got a lot of great things, happening now, and we're still pretty basic, in terms of what we do and what we require, but we're sprinkling in some new things all the time, and
Hmm.
we've got great visibility on our business now, and the metrics that we track and all that kind of stuff, and but still lots more to go. But yeah, it's been interesting, especially for myself, because I always say, yes, I grew up, with a computer in the house from 12 years old on. It might have been dial-up internet, but we had a computer in the house, and so most of my life I've been around computers. But it's not really something I'm super passionate about myself. Like I love, I understand its purpose, and email communication and AI adoption and SharePoint channels and all those things, and the value it provides. But it's not something that gets me up in the day excited and say, I can't wait to demo a new ERP system. Like that's not me. It's never going to be me, right? More about, how can I help this customer out on their, industrial operation get back up and running, right? So but we do have some good internal champions that
Yeah,
are really passionate about that. And I think any company that wants to do that you have to have that passion, because it can be incredibly frustrating at times. So.
yeah, yeah. So one of the challenges we have, and I just love to like think through, like, how you guys went through this as just an experience share, I work with or talk to or have family who have been in similar positions, and some of those early steps, like you actually mentioned one of the ones, like how we store things and name things so that we all know where to put them and find them. Like there's some foundational things that eventually people, it's hard to do next step things until you figure out some of the fundamentals.
Yeah.
But there's not an immediate return. Like there's a straight up capital investment or time investment, or sometimes it just makes things harder to do, but it's so important for the bigger, longer term. How would you, if you were to talk to yourself or your father back when you were making some of these earlier investments, like how do you rationalize that, or how do you budget for some of these improvement things? Is it all, because it's not always a business case in the short term, from my understanding.
No, and I mean, we're always playing the long game, right? We're always
Mm.
looking, and that's right from dealing with clients. We're not out looking to make a fortune off any one project. We're looking at the long game, that we want these customers to be valued customers 2 decades down the road, right?
Mm.
Very similar with our internal exercises. The family's always been, very, very conservative with their lifestyle, and really believed in investing back into the business as often as we could. And that's why if you look at an aerial view of our shops, it looks like a jigsaw puzzle, because you add it on here and there and everywhere every couple of years, right? But when it comes to the IT, I mean, I think keeping it simple is something that's really key. I mean, everybody knows there's endless options out there in the marketplace for anything you'd ever want to do. And every sales rep that you get a demo from says that here we're the absolute best and here's why, right? And it's very, very difficult to navigate through that. And we've also made the mistake of saying, you know what, there's nothing out there that's doing what we're going to do, so we're going to try and build it ourselves. And that was a mistake.
So let's double click.
Yeah.
Do you mind telling that story a little bit? Because I make this try to clear, like I help people navigate that. And if you're open to it, I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, and look, I'll say there have been some, database type programs that we've developed and still use to this day that work quite well. But we started out probably 3 or 4 years ago, looking to build what we call an OMS, an operations management system, kind of a light ERP. And the challenge that we've always had when we looked at a software demo was the four pillars of the business, and the fact that they're very different. Like, what platform out there can support a retail operation, a high production CNC machining facility, a structural job shop, and 40 guys in the field doing every which way? The answer was
100%.
we couldn't really find anything, right? So we said, okay, well, we're going to build it ourselves. And that was a quick way to dump a couple $100,000 into something with absolute no return, and ended up getting torched about 8 months into it. Right? It's so easy to underestimate how difficult it is to build a platform that actually works and have the ability to actually support it when it breaks. Right? And we made a very similar misstep with e-commerce. I'll say that with our industrial sales platform, we signed on to an e-commerce platform that looked great on paper. It is a very robust platform. Never in your life would we have the ability to support it with the size of the business that we are. You'd need, a team of full-time people just to keep up to date with the pricing changes and the product information and all those types of things. And it's easy to forget about that when you see the shiny and, boost your revenue by ABC% and reach all these new customers. And you think, how am I actually going to support this in the long term? Because even if you build it, that stuff breaks a lot. And, especially with people like me that don't know how to use it and click on the wrong things and just hit exit when it freezes and all that stuff. So
you're perfectly articulating the issue.
I've actually, I've marked down the timestamp, and we're going to clip this 45-second video. And instead of me trying to explain, it's like, by the way, here's what you should be thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's like I said, obviously we do have a a basic ERP in our company, and we've got a great external IT company that manages all our Microsoft platforms, and
Yeah,
we
yeah.
use SharePoint and cloud storage, and some database programs, and we're set up pretty good.
Yeah,
Eventually, we do need to move, I'd say, to a full scale ERP, but it scares me to death. I won't lie. I've got
yeah.
got
Yeah.
some battle scars over the past few years, but I know there are a ton of great options out there. But I also know that that's a multi-year, several zero type undertaking to get it right, and then you got to support it, right? So
And
if you
you
can
totally
fail, at the basic level, how much harder is it at the advanced level, right? And we've done some things like started working with the universities, Dalhousie in particular, with co-op students to help us with some of that horsepower to get some things across the finish line, and that's been a great avenue that we've taken. But trying to think that if anybody thinks they're going to deal with something like that just on the side of their desk, boy, are you wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
well, and the sales folks. And well, I mean, not even the sales representatives, like just even the websites of these things, that they all do everything well. Like that's the
No,
problem, is they say they all do everything well.
yeah.
That's funny. Actually, so are you work with Dalhousie? Is it that digital innovation group?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the so Bachelor of Computer Science. We've actually had some industrial engineering co-op students as well help us with some
Nice.
things, and then it's the Masters in Digital Innovation and the Bachelor of Computer Science group. So, and it's amazing, what these folks can do coming out of school. Like it really is. But again,
My brother-in-law's in that course right now.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He just got a
Yeah.
placement working on working for the university. Yeah, so he'd be working with other companies. So that's kind of interesting. That's fun.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, they've been a great partnership. And of course, trying to get co-op students to come to New Glasgow for a work term is not not always the easiest thing to do. A lot of them don't have
Mm-hmm.
vehicles. A lot of them aren't from Canada to begin with. So coming
Mm-hmm.
to small town Nova Scotia can be a little overwhelming for them, but we've had some really great experiences too.
Mm-hmm.
nice. Nice.
Yeah. Great.
That's fascinating.
I
I can't get over how well you articulated that. Like it was, yeah, it's like everything that we also complain
Yeah,
about.
because like
we've
I
lived
don't
it,
even know
and
how. Yeah, I don't know exactly. Like I don't think we ever. We end up helping a lot of organizations go through their like the selection of software,
yeah,
and like trying to tell them like we can do the online scan, but like if you really want, like this is a big deal, then like we actually have to meet them. We have to get into tech and like have to test them. Like it's, you can't trust anything, and it's just like a, yeah,
One
it's not a
example
decision to be making lightly.
One example that we've run into more than once was that oh, dog bark. Sorry, one sec. We'll clip that out. 1 second. Sorry about that. One thing that seemed to come up more than once is that there's features that were in the US version of the software, but not in the Canadian version, but they advertised it just as, as it was everywhere. And you can't know those things but you can ask better questions in the beginning now, like after we've had enough road rash. But
I know, and it's we I could literally just keep going on with the technology failures that we've
Mm-hmm.
had, right? I shouldn't say failure, but serious challenges.
Yeah, yeah.
We made the decision a few years ago to externalize our payroll service provider, and from bringing it in-house just with, but we're not a straightforward payroll. We've got, we're affiliated with a dozen different trade unions that all have different collective agreements, all get paid at different times. Then we have our biweekly pay periods. We've got regular time and overtime and double time and travel allowances and this and that and the other thing. And
Oh.
so it got really overwhelming for us internally, and we had the wrong person in the seat that was selecting the software. And anyway, we're still using it to this day, but it took a lot of time and a lot of exertion to get it to where it is, and it still takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of maintenance to keep it up because it just, again, wasn't super built for what we are using it for, right?
It
And then we
wasn't the
try.
Phoenix system the feds are using, is it?
No, God, no, no, it's not that bad. Everybody gets paid every week or every 2 weeks. Generally it's right, but it's taken a lot of workarounds, right? And then we tried, every sales rep's nightmare and implementing a CRM. That turned out to be a colossal waste of time. And I mean, again, we have a small sales team. I have 2 business development reps that work with us, and there's a number of other people that are involved in the business development process. In my opinion, every person in the company is involved in the business development process. But we quickly kind of wiped that one away and just went back to the fundamentals. And it's don't overthink it, right? Like just because it's new and shiny, and it has a silver, gold, and platinum option, and you pick the platinum, doesn't mean it's right for your business.
Yeah. Understanding the problem you're solving. I love like that approach. Is yeah, don't let the tool dictate what you need.
And it's the other thing is it's impossible to think of everything in the first iteration, right? So you have to work in iterations, and you have to have the patience to actually see those things through. Because if you start out and expect, okay, I'm going to turn it on and it's going to do everything I want it to do and it's going to work perfectly, forget about it, right? It takes months, if not years, of working out bugs and changing mapping and making adjustments to get it to where you need it to be. And even then, it's only going to do 95% of what you want it to do, right? So
yeah, very healthy mindset. Obviously, you've been punched in the face a few times to get that mindset, but I think it's a very healthy mindset
yeah,
to have.
getting pretty battered and bruised, but I feel we're in a good position now. It's taken years
Yeah.
to get there, and by no means are we exceptional or state of the art when it comes to the digital technology piece, but we're doing what needs to be done. So
I'm super impressed actually. So I like strong fundamentals. It's the same as like I don't know, maybe it's an Atlantic Canadian thing, but I think it's about like living without debt is now considered wealth.
yeah.
Having strong fundamentals is now like healthy. Yeah, yeah. Uh, this segue a little bit because we kind of been talking about you kind of going through the school of hard knocks on the whole technology modernization pieces, but you're the general manager, you're the top leader of a company that has a lot of moving parts. It's complicated. One of the conversations I've been having with a lot of our guests, because I'm exploring what my own professional development and education might look like. Like I have lots of peer groups and I talk to lots of people, and I think that's really important. But is there any education that you're like as a CEO, C-suite leader as you go in the future? What are you feeling like you're missing, or what are you looking at, or what are you like? Do you have any of those thoughts on your own?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And again, the thought of carving out time right now with the young family and stuff for an MBA or something like that just seems like,
Yeah.
wow, how would anybody ever do that? But, I think down the road I could see something like that in my cards. We're members of a lot of industry associations that have a ton of training available. The trade unions that we're members with have a ton of excellent training opportunities available, and you got to try and sprinkle it in, right? Like I'm really at the point in my life that it's more kind of a 2 or 3 day course here and there, right? And there's a ton of options out there for that, and just kind of like sounds boring as hell, but I took a course over the Christmas break about how to optimize your Microsoft Outlook, and man, the time that course saved me, right? Like just little things that you're just, you don't even realize. I mean, everybody lives in their inbox every day, all day, right? And, just little things like that made such a difference in my everyday life. So it's those little tweaks and adjustments on how you do things. And I'm a huge advocate for, training for all of our staff. I mean, we're very generous with what we support in terms of training for our employees, because it makes them better people and makes them more valuable to us as an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a fantastic thing. And it's interesting. We just had a current employee of ours that was, at the stage in his life he was considering thinking about going back to school full time. And, I had the conversation with him back and forth about, the pros and cons to that. And, what my suggestion was is that, and I'll say it to, you know, students that are fresh out of trade school too, is that you learn more walking the walk in the run of a week than you will in a classroom setting in a year. And I'm a firm believer in that, right? There's so much talent in our organization that you can learn from and
Mm,
feed off of. There's always that requirement and component for the formal education piece, but learning from the people around you and their experiences is so invaluable.
yeah, totally.
It
Totally.
sounds like it sounds like you've got a great culture. Is that something that was just kind of inherent in the way that you kind of grew up in the company? How would you describe the culture of the company?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to keep up with the evolution, right? I mean, we've got four different generations working in our business today, right? And how you navigate culture with an 18-year-old is a lot different than you navigate culture with a 68-year-old, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Mm,
But I mean, we've always tried to maintain that family feel, that door's always open. We want to help you succeed, and we'll do everything in our power to do that. It certainly gets harder the more the company grows, but even just things like making sure that, that's one thing Dad always said, is make sure you make the time to get out on the floor, talk to the guys, look at the projects, get out, get in the truck, get out to the job sites. And that's the favorite part of my job, right? Getting on the road,
mm,
seeing our clients, seeing our employees, checking out the work that we're doing. It's very difficult to carve out the time to do that at times, right? Sometimes you feel like you could just handcuff yourself to the desk for 50 hours a week, but you have to do that, right? It's an important part, and the customers really appreciate it, and the employees really appreciate it.
mhm.
They all take a lot of pride in the work that they do for us as a business, and a quick pat on the back, or a nice work type thing goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Totally.
Um, so you've been relatively recently in the top seat. Uh, I guess I was wondering and again, I'm talking to a lot of people I know who have gone through a similar journey, but they're all unique. The Have you had to make your own like big strategic choice? Because you inherited, like you're a caretaker of some things that you inherited, but there's going to be big decisions you need to make that change the pathway a bit.
Yeah.
Have you come up on some of those already?
Yeah, a few. There's definitely been, like I said, we work in a lot of different markets, and there's some markets that are really strong and some markets that are really challenging. And
Mm,
one of the decisions that we had to make, just not long before the holidays here, was to exit a market that, a couple years ago was our single biggest market, and over 40% of our revenue. But just the nature of that market being in the natural resources sector, it ebbs and flows so much. We got in at the boom, then it went bust, and it's very capital intensive market to operate in. And we just said, listen, there's it's all one thing for having pride and making sure you maintain our presence in the market, but that doesn't pay the bills. So it was a tough
mm,
decision to make, and we agreed that, listen, if things turn around in a couple years time,
mm,
maybe we'll re-enter that market, right? It involved getting on planes and really supporting things at a high cost, and we weren't the locals, and the local
hmm.
businesses that do what we do that were there were all starving as well. So like, okay, we're kind of last to the table here. So it ended up, when you sat down and looked at the facts, it was a pretty easy decision to make, right? It
It's
was
easy
a
to not
matter.
look at the facts, so it's
It
easy
is.
to.
And look, I mean, it's so hard to retract in your business, right? And when you go up and up and up, it's so it's very hard from a pride perspective to take a step back and say, this isn't making sense anymore. right? And, retract a bit. And, we thankfully, because we have the 4 business units of the company, they balance themselves out quite well, that we have a few that are steady Eddie, busy all the time, great revenue, great profitability. Then we've got a couple that are always on that roller coaster, right? And sometimes when the roller coaster gets to the bottom, you gotta pull the track out, right? Because it's you always got to look at the business model and continue asking yourself, does this make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's those are some big decisions to make.
Yeah.
Especially I find there's almost more pressure. Like I find because I've only built or started or joined things, and you come up with those decisions, but you know you inherited a lot, and so there
Yeah,
must
and
be like a
and
different weight to it.
you know, the growth really, I mean, when I started with the company full time in 2011, we were around just under 50 employees, good stable business, had grown from, I think when dad and my uncle took the business over from the grandparents in 2000, I think we were say 25, 26 employees. In 2011 it was right around 48. So some good, consistent
Mm,
growth in the business over the years, but pretty steady. It was really right around, I'll say 2017 type thing that things really started taking off, right? That we got a lot more active in the field operation side of the business that
mm,
is a lot easier to scale because it requires some capital, but it's not putting buildings up and all kinds of expensive equipment. It's more trucks and tools and trailers and that kind of stuff. So that part of it really, really grew. And I was a key part of that right from the start. So even
mm,
though, yeah, you're right, I did inherit a lot of the core services that we offer. I really felt a sense of ownership with that piece of the
yeah.
business. So, taking a step back, we're still extremely active in it. It's, we still have a great business model. We've got over 30 people in the field, today as we speak, and it's still a great part of our business, but it's just that you gotta have that pivot, right? So
Mm. What excites you about the future? Any BHAGs in the
retirement. Just joke. Um, what excites me about the future? Honestly, I think, the opportunities in the region, right? The regional economy is really, really taking a turn around. I mean, we always say the best work is the work closest to home, but there hasn't been enough going on around. But the opportunities that we see in the Maritimes over the next decade is, really unprecedented for primary industry, right? And I always say that point is that, our business is a secondary industry. We require primary industries to be thriving to really have a business model, right? And that's 50 years ago. We're in our 50th year operation. When my grandparents started the business, just here in Pictou County, primary industry was thriving. I always tell that story. We had railcar manufacturing and steel foundries and large pulp mills and traditional forestry and agriculture and, so on and so forth. It was just shipbuilding, right? There was so much going on here, and now outside of tire manufacturing, that's basically all gone, right, for primary
Mhm.
industry. So back then in the 70s, it was a pretty easy business model to say, I'm going to start a small machine shop. Now it would be incredibly difficult, but you have to go and you have to build your customer base out, right? So, but yeah, I think that's what I'm most optimistic on. And it's, yeah, every day's a new adventure. Some days I feel like a chicken with my head cut off and wondering, when am I actually going to start following the plan and following the strategy? But parts of it, that's what keeps it interesting too, right? So,
Yeah. Do you do formalized strategic planning?
we do some, like once a year we'll get the management team off site for a couple of days and just kind of talk about what's our most important items to work on. And we have a very formal budgeting process so that we plan out our revenue targets and expense targets and capital and that kind of stuff every year. And then, we talk about growth strategy and target customers and sales planning. Could we do more? Yes, but um, I'm all about, more action, less talk, right? So
Yeah.
it
And you must have to
fine.
stay pretty adaptable to the world around you.
Absolutely, and like I said, everybody. you know, everybody has a job description here, but at the end of the day, it's you know, a get it done attitude, right? It's nothing to see me sometimes on a, you know, end of the day when people are leaving to jump in the forklift and unload a truck, or you know, I'm always the on-call guy that, you know, Saturday night if a customer needs a hydraulic hose made, you know, I'm coming down and helping them out, right? And that's the fun stuff to me, right?
Yeah.
That's just what we do, and you know, nothing I enjoy more than helping those customers get going. So.
I know I miss because we do mostly professional services. We have some like we get a little bit hands on the, boots on the ground, but for most of our work is behind a Zoom screen or behind a phone call.
Yeah.
And I often like I don't have that same like I was telling you before the call. It's like I got a chance to go on site and have a conversation and make a direct impact. I saw a result from, and I was like, don't get that as often anymore. Like I'd love to have more.
Yeah, it's great. Very very dynamic, and because you know we don't have a product line, I mean on the retail side we have a product line, but the rest of it,
Mm.
you know, you never know what's coming tomorrow, right? Being a project-based business, also being in the repair space, and that's another dynamic that we've had to navigate with our business. That you know, yes, we're doing major industrial projects for the leading industry in Atlantic Canada, but we're also still servicing the small local blueberry farmer and the lobster fisherman and
Mm.
the small sawmill guy, right? And to them, their job is the most important job because that's their livelihood, right?
Mm.
And that managing that dynamic, and we've segregated it out a bit with our small jobs division. But to me, those are some of the most important customers that we have. I mean, the sum of them total may not amount to the same as our two largest projects in the year, but they're the ones that are here when the big projects aren't, right? And that's what I've always
Yeah.
said is, you know, we've had other customer or other managers in the business saying, do we even bother with that anymore? I said, those customers will be here until my dying day because they're the ones that are always here, right? When the projects that you have to be low bid and submit 800 pages of documentation on and so on, they're the ones that are still here when those projects come and go. So,
Yeah.
It's a great philosophy.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's really, really interesting. Um, yeah, you're making me think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have like I mean a very different industry. We have some similarities around like we talk a lot about the mix of work and
Yeah.
like keeping some of the
Ideal
because
mix.
we
Yeah.
did have a period of time where we had we like we're not going to do smaller work. We're going to try to just do bigger work, and over time we realized it's important for us to always try to strive for a blend. And one of the reasons, which I bet is similar to you, is the smaller companies or the smaller engagements are sometimes more interesting work and keep our team sharper and our team enjoy it more.
Yeah.
Where the bigger work is like more pressure, more stress, or less fun, or less impact. The mix has been good for the team, not just it's not just a financial reason we do the mix of work now. It's just it blends into a lot of different areas.
And to be honest, when you look at the return on time invested, the smaller jobs make more sense a lot of the time when it comes to the bottom line as well, right? It's I don't think that's any secret, but and you're right. I mean, it's about the mix of work. And it's different skill sets as well. The ones that can, because you have to be efficient and get those small jobs in and out. They can't get delayed in for 4 weeks on a design piece. You know, that fisherman needs to get up and running, right? It is a challenge to manage both dynamics. There's no challenge, no question there. But we've done a lot of work to make sure that priority gets applied to them. And yeah, it's good, and it the four pillars of our business that we have all tie in so well together that we kind of offer that one, without sounding corny, the one-stop shop approach, right? For a lot of our clients, and they've come to appreciate that over the years. So
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That is a battle that we've had of like, do we want to be that one-stop shop versus hyper focused? But it's a scary decision to make.
yeah, and look, when I say that, there's lots of things that we still don't do, that we really don't have any intention of getting into. Like we kind of made the decision 2 years ago when we kind of had to take a step back there, for with the marketplace and some employee attrition and so on. That we said, okay, we're not planning on getting any smaller, but we're going to get a hell of a lot stronger. right? We're going to strengthen the foundation. We're really going to reinforce things. We're going to get the processes in place that we've been talking about for all these years. When when your revenue is going up a cliff, right? It's hard to implement processes to keep those things in order along the way, right? It's basically impossible. So now we had a chance to say, okay, we were here, now we're down here. We're not going to go down here, but we're going to stay really stable at where we're at, and then we're going to start building again, right? And that made some difficult choices along the way as well, but it was the right thing to do. It made it a hell of a lot more enjoyable place to work, and a lot more comfortable, and a lot better position for the long-term success. So
Yeah.
Wow.
I
Seems like, yeah, you've really yeah, you've had a ton of experiences over the last little while, and like it's really interesting to hear you talk about all this, because like this is the kind of stuff that we talk about all the time, and it's just like, wow, I'm
usually
like,
we have to introduce it though. It's great.
yeah, like you're a rare breed. Interesting, really
so people
interesting.
call it crazy, but yeah, and look,
Yeah.
I had a lot of, unique opportunities growing up that, in our retail side of the business, I was basically managing that when I was 18 years old, right? So, I was managing inventory counts, I was managing dealing with suppliers, I was managing quoting customers and dealing with quality issues and all those types of things when I was still in high school, right? So, I got exposed to it at a very early age. And that was immensely helpful to me, and also had the ability to fail, right? And I always say to people, you need to let people fail, because I've learned most of what I've learned by screwing up, right? By making mistakes and getting things wrong. And, I had that kind of comfort net there that, okay, if I screw something up for the first few times, I'm probably not going to be sent packing, right? Because Dad would still have to see me down the hallway if he did. But it's one of those things that I believe in, and I always say to our supervisors now, like when we get students on their co-op work terms or right out of school or something, I mean, let them make mistakes, right? I mean, don't let them make a $10,000 mistake, but let them make a mistake, let them learn from it, let them have to grind out their welds and tell them to do it over again. And, that's part of learning, and they won't do it twice, right? That's very important. And I think that's, one of the fundamentals of skill development.
It's also a fundamental in culture development. Like,
Yeah.
it's a very, very fundamental. Yeah. I have to assume, like, just because I know the region you're from, that like you must have to grow people within. Like, you can't just pick every skill set you want off the earth from your local community.
Far from it.
Yeah. How is that for you, hiring and find, like, do you have to like bring people in and build them, like give them the trade school and connect them with people, or is there enough skilled trades around you? We talked to a lot of people, like the access to skilled trades has become a real challenge for a lot of people.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's an ongoing battle for sure. We have some wonderful folks that have been here a long time, and but as we grow, it's a very challenging market for sure. But it's challenging in HRM as well, right? I mean, you get the big guys like Irving Shipbuilding and the federal government that are able to offer very competitive compensation packages. And we always try to get creative in what keeps people here, right? Like, what it's one thing to get them here, but then you have to get them to stay, right? So we always try to do, a few things different. Some things as simple as our annual staff golf tournament that people look forward to every year, and increasing the vacation that we can offer people. And yes, you have, at the end of the day, money talks a lot of the time. You have to be competitive, but it is a challenge. And we have done a lot of what you've just talked about, was the direct entry into the apprenticeship method, because unfortunately we do have an NSCC campus here in town, but we've lost some of the skilled trades programs from it that we employ. So now we've started with a number of folks that'll say, okay, listen, you're graduated from grade 12, you've had the opportunity to work here as a summer student or work term or whatever. We like you, you like us. This is a career you want to do. Why don't you stay and go directly into the apprenticeship method, which still gives them, their fundamental education, teaches them on the fly. We've done that half a dozen different times now in the past couple of years, and it's worked out quite well for us. And I'll never discourage anyone from going to school, but we'll say, listen, this is an option for you, right? And
Yeah.
and it's worked pretty good. And because you're right, it's good people are hard to find. Doesn't matter if you're in a small town or big city, and it's only going to get harder, right?
Funny, my other brother-in-law works at the Irving shipyard for DOD.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he does
No,
like
it's
quality assurance for paint. So
okay. Yeah,
yeah.
and people are transient, right? Like we're here in rural Pictou County, we're 90 to 100 minutes from the Irving shipyard, and there's probably 200 people every day that are traveling back and forth for a 10-hour shift, right? So their 10-hour day becomes a 14-hour day or a 15-hour day, depending on the weather and the traffic, right? So it's a lot of commute.
Interesting. So I might spin us a little bit because I've heard a lot of really great things, and I like some of the way you're talking about things. I think it's important for people to hear because it's just real. It's very real. Um, but when you think about where you were at 10 years ago, or you think about some of the other people in your community, or maybe earlier on in their business ownership or business management journey, any like we've talked about some of your specific, but like as a general, as a leader, taking on this responsibility, any principles or any advice that you wish you had had earlier come to mind?
Um, I mean, I was very fortunate to have a lot of them from earlier on, but I mean, the big thing is, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but you got to be the hardest worker in the room, right? That's what I say to everybody. That's really the differentiator. If you put your time in, you put your effort in, you show interest, that's going to get you where you want to go in life, right? You look at some of the most successful people in the world, they're not always, university educated people. They're, they don't always come from, wealthy backgrounds or anything like that, but they work their ass off to get to where they wanted to be. And, like I said, I'll say that having the family business opportunity in front of me really, I'd say, matured me at an earlier age that, being 21 years old, working the family business, I felt that sense of ownership long before the conversation ever started being had about actual ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big leg up for me. I don't get me wrong, I still have my fun, still party like most 20 or 25-year-olds do, but that was a big part of it. And it's really having that drive is the key thing. And being passionate about what you do. Like I say that to everybody. I mean, I'm incredibly fortunate to love what I do, but if I grew up in a family business environment that I dreaded going to work every day, I wouldn't be there, right? Life's too short, and you have to commit so much of your life to your career that it's just not worth it if you don't enjoy what you do, right? To me, everyone says, well, geez, you're every night you're at the computer for an hour or two doing this and that, or you're here at some point most days of the weekend. It's like, yeah, but to me it's not work, right? Like, yes, there's hard days, don't get me wrong, and tough days, and discouraging times, but I genuinely enjoy what I do, so it doesn't feel like it. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
nuisance for me to have to come down here at 9 o'clock in the evening to throw something in the truck for a guy. To me, it's an honor to do it, right? So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's
That's just it's so cool to hear all this.
eh,
This is great.
on the home side, like you mentioned you have a young family.
yep.
Um and we talked built to last is the divide, and like we've almost exclusively talked about, you on the business side. Um how has it been? Like my assumption is that with family you've had to make a few changes. That you've had to create some boundaries, and I don't believe in the word balance. I really don't. But like, is there anything you found is working, or things you've had to learn around dividing yourself?
Well, the hardest job I have every day is, raising raising kids, right? It's the best job that I have every day as well. But trying to negotiate with a 6-year-old will take the cake over negotiating with a purchasing agent any day. But look, I'm extremely fortunate. Again, I live, I could walk to work every day. I live about 30 seconds up the road. Very fortunate to live where we live. I have a extremely supportive wife that's also a very driven individual. She's in a management position with Nova Scotia Health and runs her own private boxing club, and is also an extremely driven person. Lots of great family around to help us raise our little guy Owen, and we're very supportive of each other because we know it's what gets us out of bed in the morning, right? So, but it's
You kind of brushed by
Yeah.
own box.
Yeah. Any funny stories of your wife being a experienced boxer? Just like,
yeah, lots of jokes about being careful with your tongue around her because she'll knock you out. But yeah, so the year we started dating, actually, she won the national championship as a boxer herself, and then we said it was time to go, take it further or go to university, and she went the university route. But yeah, just over the past couple of years, she took over as president of the one of the oldest boxing clubs in the province, actually, here in New Glasgow. Yeah, it's great, that brings us together as well, setting up for the boxing cards, and Owen gets to run around down there a bit, and it's really it's her drive and her passion is that, and helping kids develop, and they just trained a national champion themselves that won after fighting for it for years, right? So it's everybody's got to have that passion, and the lucky ones get to make that passion their career. So.
Wow.
Yeah, and I love that we got a little bit into this tangent because like I think it would be easy to feel like although you're passionate and you love what you do and it doesn't feel like work, you did talk about working some evenings and working more often, working harder than most other people, but there is this whole element of you being fully engaged in the other parts. Like
Yeah,
that's part of the why we want to have these conversations is this you can be extra here but also be engaged here. It's just like
well, you can't. I mean, you can't forget the importance of family. And I mean, am I getting up and coming into the office at 6 a.m. anymore like I used to? No, because I do school drop off at 8 unless I'm on the road. So, you always make time for that. And, again, if I'm not on the road, which fortunately I don't have to be away from home that much with the role I'm in now, but, you know, come home for 5 and, hang out as a family for 2 or 3 hours, and then once the little man goes to bed, you flip the laptop back on, you deal with a few things. So but it is a good balance, and even growing up, and even still to this day, when you're down at family's house, work always gets brought up in the conversation. Even going over to see my grandfather, anytime we have great conversations, but the first thing out of his mouth is, keep him busy over at the shop today, right? He always wants to know what's going on, right? And it's great. And some days you certainly don't feel like talking about it, but it all really becomes enmeshed into, one big bucket when you're in the family business. So
yeah, totally. I get that. Colby, I think I've scratched my itches. Is there any other areas you want to make sure we cover? Is there anything you want to make sure to talk about as well?
I can't believe that we covered as much as we did in an hour and 2 minutes. It's like usually, yeah, this is just this is a bit of a different one for us. Like, I'm kind of blown away by like all the topics that we did cover. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you feel like we should?
Well, it's the topics really are endless, right? And it's there's so much out there, and you forget 90% of the things you learned, right? Until you immerse yourself in it, and it's just like every day you're learning, every day you're having experiences, every day you're making mistakes, and you just gotta keep on keeping on, right? And that's what it's all about, and you know having some fun with things like this, right? I mean, what better way to spend a Friday afternoon than shooting the breeze with a couple of guys about life in general, right? So, yeah, but So no, it's been great, guys, and always happy to share our story and carry on the family business flag and the rural business flag and all that kind of stuff, and hope to carry it on for many years yet to come. So
Yeah,
Amazing.
20 years from now, it'll be interesting to see what the where
That's
things
right.
are at.
Yeah.
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 Okay,
You
I do have one more question.
Yeah.
You did mention AI earlier. Have you guys been tinkering with that in the company at all?
God, if I hear AI adoption one more time this week, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, yes.
Again, very validating response.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for that.
yeah.
That was
Yeah,
great.
So look, I
totally.
think it's wonderful. It also, like, for the first, I'll say, year that ChatGPT and the basic AI platforms started to come mainstream, I was scared to death. And I'll be honest, what I said to people was that our civilization is becoming stupid enough without artificial intelligence, right? But I'll admit that I've changed that and I've warmed up to it, and a lot of that was because we've had a couple kind of internal champions that really got comfortable with it. And I always say this when people ask me about AI. The very first time, one of our lead estimators, super smart guy, and a lot of respect for him, he got really into it because using AI for estimation is one of the main things we started experimenting with. But he's like, let me show you, give me an example of something you want to know about. So, Pictou County, the area that we're in for, is famous for our pizza. We have a brown sauce pizza, and a family of folks that immigrated from Greece, and it's world known. We have more pizza places per capita than anywhere in the world. And so I said, tell me the story about Pictou County pizza. So we typed that into ChatGPT, and it was a wonderful story that everyone could entirely believe, but it was about 98% false. So that it wasn't a great start for me on that. But again, that was probably, I'm going to say, probably 3 years ago. And
Yeah.
now I won't say I use it every day, but I use it a fair bit, right? Just to rough things out, right? Like, using
Yeah.
it for health and safety policies to get rough drafts or position descriptions or basic templates for things. It's not going to do your job, but it certainly supplements it, right? So we're still very much at the exploration stage, but things like estimation and, administration, things like that can become fairly monotonous at times. It's got a huge place in that, right? And there's going to be a lot more of it to come for sure. So
Yeah, it's an interesting, like, especially in your type of industry, like I wouldn't say it's ready to be mass adopted now, but we did some research projects for a couple of companies around putting AI in your security cameras to watch for hard hat usage. Like these little
okay,
safety protocols that like some of that stuff is like, oh, like once that really becomes affordable, like that's pretty cool actually. But like it's still not like it's there if you put a lot of money into it, but not for everybody. Sometimes, or the camera that will count, like your inventory in the warehouse is counted in real time by just a video camera watching the space. Like that type of thing is still like that's not chatbot stuff, but that's coming. That's coming alongside with the rest of
and we're looking at it. We're looking at it on the shop floor as well. That of course, we've got high tech CNC machining centers and all those types of things. But we're really starting to look at basic robotics and more automation of processes and so on, of how we can simplify those things, because again, labor's hard to come by. Right? There's certain things that that you can look at that are just like, does a human really have to be doing that, right? It's 2026.
That's a human want to
funny,
do.
one of our project managers said that to me last week, and we were talking about a project, and it was a lot. The certain part of the project was a absurd amount of quite manual labor work, and he's like, guys, it's 2026. Why are humans still doing this, right? Why aren't we looking at a better way to do this, right? And I was like, yeah, I never really thought of that, right? Because before it was always just you grab the grinder and you set things up and you go and you do it the way you always did. But when you have to do it for hundreds of hours on end, right? You're burning out people, you're burning out equipment, you're doing all the things. So there has to be a better way.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer. That's all I got. I mean, we can tie a little bow on this if we want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm good, guys. It was a pleasure, and yeah, I look forward to seeing the finished product for sure. So I appreciate you thinking of me. So
Yeah, and just forgive in advance for the number of people. I'm just like, all right, your mindset on this whole thing. You just need to go talk to Nick. He'll set you straight.
Yeah,
that's all right. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
always happy to have a chat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Let's
No
call
problem,
this one
miss.
done.
This episode of Built to Last is brought to you by Iron House Pro, your behind-the-scenes partner in building organizations designed to thrive. We specialize in solving the big challenges, the small annoyances, and everything in between. So while you're out there dreaming big, we're here making sure your systems, processes, and people are ready for tomorrow. Iron House Pro, driven to create lasting organizations. Learn more at ironhousepro.com.